So when I created this, I was in a rush and I totally messed up the cover, both the front and the back. It's too short, the laminating didn't stick, it was just a mess. But I went ahead and bound it. So now I wanted to fix it with two new covers that I created, that I made look better, and that I made the right size. Now, this video is about the hack that I use to do this. Essentially, when I started the journaling world, I entered via the Erin Condren planner, and I used a lot of techniques that I learned from that to fix this. If you've ever used the Erin Condren planner, then you know that her planners have interchangeable covers. And the reason you can change those covers is because there are like little slits in where these binding holes are, and you just pop it in to make it fit into the notebook. And I realized that as long as you use sturdy enough paper, you can do that with your own binding system. So what I do when I want to insert pages into my notebook is I usually create a laminated page. So if you use general cardstock or even maybe regular printer paper, and then you laminate it, it gives it that durability. And then if you just cut a little slit from the edge of the paper into the hole that you've punched, you can pop it in the same way you would do an Erin Condren planner. And I've been doing that for like pages in my notebook. So when I had this problem, I decided to try it for the cover. Now, I did experience a couple of difficulties doing this for the cover versus inserting something just into the notebook. For starters, I have to take the old cover, which I did not do this way, off of the original notebook. And for two, I made this a lot thicker. So usually when I'm inserting things in, it's just a regular piece of paper. This is actually chipboard with a page on top and a page on bottom and laminated. So it was very thick and I found it very difficult to cut. You will see me in this video changing my scissors frequently. I actually have a pair of, I call them baby scissors, but I think they're like kids scissors. They're the small short scissors. That's what I like to use to cut the holes because they're very short and I don't run the risk of cutting the whole page or something as I'm, clamping down. But those scissors were not strong enough to cut this paper. So I had to use my larger scissors, which made me a little nervous about cutting too far in or, and cutting through the hole into the actual cover and things like that. But I managed to get through it, and it doesn't take that long once you get the hang of it and once you are able to, make that little cut. And so I went ahead and did that to prep the new cover. And I essentially did the same thing to take off the old cover. However, that proved to be a little bit more difficult because you have to go through the coil to cut to get it out. If you were using a normal piece of paper, you could rip it out. But since this is also chipboard and laminated paper and all kinds of things, it was very thick. It was hard to cut, and I was also trying to make sure I didn't cut pages from the notebook that I wanted to stay in there. You have to get the angle right. I'm sorry if, at times the pages are flying up at the camera. It was very difficult to get angled just right. I ended up finding out that the large scissors did not work trying to do it this way because they were too long, so I had to go back to the little scissors, and they were harder to cut with because, like I said, the paper is very thick because it's chipboard. So I struggled a lot more than I thought I would when I got this idea that this is how I would replace the covers. But eventually I was able to get all of the cutting done and remove this cover from the top, from the front. made that final cut, I just pulled it off and it was ready for me to stick on the new cover. I anticipated this to work the way it has worked previously with all of the other pages I've done like this, and it did not. So what I noticed was, because this page is so much thicker, it is very much like a hardcover. It is not the same thickness as an Erin Condren cover or even a Happy Planner cover. Because I use chipboard, it is a very, very hard, solid piece. So these little prongs, I guess you could call them, that I created when I made these slits, they're not flexible. They're very much rigid, and so it made it very hard to pop them in place in between the coils. And then, of course, because I have plastic coils instead of metal coils, the coils kept kind of they were more bendy and flexible, which made it even more difficult. So I found myself having to work at different angles, having to press very, very forcefully, and do it step by step. It was not easy to just kind of press it in. It was a little frustrating. So I did learn that from this. I would not recommend this technique in the end, it did work, and in the grand scheme of things, I guess it didn't take that long. But I don't know that I would want to do this often, so I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, you should do all of your covers like this, and you can have interchangeable covers like the Erin Condren notebook. I'm not sure that I would go that far into recommending this. It definitely, for like something like this where it was like I messed up and I need to fix it, it definitely gets the job done. I do have chipboard that's a little thinner, and I think if I had used that instead, this might have been easier, because I like I said, I've used this method for pages inside my notebook. I started this when I was primarily bullet journaling, and I wanted laminated sheets for my monthly page. And of course, going in, you don't know where your monthly pages are going to land. So I would wait until it was time to do the monthly, and then I would create it, laminate it, and then I would cut these slits and just pop it into place. And I never had trouble putting it in. Those worked very much like the Erin Condren ones, where you can pop it in a matter of seconds, a minute or so, and they pull out just as easily, and they're very secure, which is why I thought this would be the perfect solution to fix this cover. But as you can see, getting this front cover in was a very tedious process. The back cover went exactly the same way, though I'm not going to make you watch me do both of them. So at this point, I'm just going to speed it up so that you can see this coming together. But like I said, just working the angles until you get the little prongs to fit in there. So that's how I fixed my notebook. It was pretty seamless. The cover is very sturdy and it sticks on. I did want to take the time to show you another way that I did the same method and show you that with thinner paper, it does not have that same resistance, and the things are a little bit more flexible. It's easier to manage. But this is the technique that I use frequently, and this is how I fixed my war binder so that it doesn't look quite so jacked up. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye, guys.